Hello and welcome back to the Masonic Roundtable, a weekly hangout where Masons from around the world get together to talk about Masonic news and opinions in a friendly and social manner. The standard disclaimer applies. The thoughts and opinions expressed here are solely the opinions of the participants and do not represent any Grand Lodge statements or positions. Remember to keep your conversations open for the public and on the level. To interact with us, send questions and comments to our Twitter page at Mason Roundtable or on the Facebook event page. As usual, my name is John Ruark, and I am a past master of the Patriot Lodge number 1957 in Fairfax, Virginia. I will hand it off to Robert Johnson.
Hey guys, Robert Johnson here, Worshipful Master of Lodge 78 and host of the Whence Came You Masonic podcast.
All right, thank you. How about Juan Sepulveda?
Good evening, everybody. My name is Juan Sepulveda, and I am a member of Orange Blossom Lodge number 80 in Kissimmee, Florida, and the host of the Winding Stairs Freemasonry podcast.
Okay. Nick Johnson.
Hey, I'm Nick Johnson, and I am a past master of Corinthian Lodge number 67 in Big Time, Farmington.
All right. Thanks, Nick. And last but not least, Jason Richards.
Thanks, John. My name is Jason Richards, and I am the Junior Warden of Acacia Lodge number 16 in good old Clifton, Virginia.
Excellent. Okay, let's move right in, as Masonic news is light this week, to our MMQ OT. Nick Johnson, what is MMQ OT?
Oh, MMQ OT. I am very glad that you asked that, John. MMQ OT stands for Masonic Monday Question on Tuesday. And we had some wonderful responses this week, and I would like to share the names. We won't share the answer because I'll just put it on the Facebook page because, well, let's just do that. But anyway, just kidding. The answer was John Elway. Bravo.
Yay.
Bravo to all of you. I'm so proud of every single darn one of you.
Except for the person who posted it on the Facebook page.
Yeah.
Rules, people. We have rules.
That person, honestly, Lord Zandred, he almost got into our realm. I was very nervous. But you know what? It's okay.
You might have had to stab him in the abdomen.
Might have. Well, you know, if you have your Fire Smasher, you're fine. So, wow, that was way too much Power Ranger knowledge than I should actually have.
Wow.
All right, so the names of those... Should I read the names or just post them on the Facebook page?
Read the names.
There's like a ton of names. Like, everybody figured this one out, so...
Alrighty.
All right, so I'm going to be a bad host, and you all who have answered the question, because I love you so much, you are going to be put on the Facebook page for all posterity.
Yay.
I know.
Go you.
You're welcome. You did it. You. Yes, you. Right there in front of me. I love you. All right. So the question for this week is a pretty interesting one concerning an emblem that we usually don't really talk about. So this is this week's question. Two of the emblems of the third degree are the ark and anchor, and are described as being emblematical of a well-grounded hope and a well-spent life. It is most obvious to us where the symbol of the ark comes from, but not so much the anchor. One famed Masonic scholar posited its source came from this passage of Scripture. Your question, who was the scholar, and from what biblical passage did he posit its origin? If you wouldn't mind sending your answer to masonicmonday@gmail.com. Don't forget to include your lodge name and number, and also the hashtag TMRMMQ. Also, don't post it on the Facebook page, please, because if you do, Harry will not be able to hang out with Lloyd anymore, and Dumb and Dumber 3 will never happen. So please, do not answer it on Facebook. Back to you, John.
Thank you, Nick. I do love your MMQs, even when they're OT.
You're welcome.
Alrighty. So for this week's topic, it is Ask Us Anything. We have survived 1 year of this awesome show. We've had a lot of fun doing it, and it's amazing. We've been able to keep that regular schedule of every Tuesday night, keep the ball rolling. As long as there's 3 of us, we'll get together and have a quorum and just have a good time. And so before we get into the questions that have been asked, I wanted to give each of the hosts an opportunity to just kind of say a few short things about what has the past year meant to you, what did you get the most out of the show, and anything else that you wanted to talk about your experience with the Masonic Roundtable. So in no particular order, I will start with Robert Johnson.
Oh, of course.
The least prepared one.
This is partially an answer to a question later, but so I won't get too much into it. But what I really got out of this, more than a show, this experience of sharing time with the 4 of you, in addition to the interaction that we have with the listeners and watchers of the show, it's just been so tremendous. I've learned when I was wrong. I've learned when I was right about things. I've been reaffirmed in things, and the lessons that everybody out there comes back and lets me know. I get emails from certain people who tell me, "Hey, you pronounced this one thing wrong, and actually, if you want to learn more, check this out." It's just an amazing experience to be able to hang out and do this every week, and just have it be exactly what it is, this round table. But the round table, of course, is worldwide. And I just can't thank everybody enough for the amazing camaraderie that we really have come together for.
Awesome. I agree. Okay, let's move to Jason Richards. How about you? What's the single best thing you've gotten out of the past year?
The past year, the single greatest thing that I have gotten is a plethora of new friendships and good, solid friendships with brethren across the world. All of the brethren who have watched the show and have friended me on Facebook and interacted with me and sent me messages on Facebook just to chat and hang out and talk about whatever has been absolutely incredible. And it's amazing that I'm able to reap the benefits of becoming friends with so many amazing people by doing something that I really just love to do anyway. So it's been an incredible journey so far, and I have to say the listeners and the people who keep watching us and keep downloading us on iTunes and Stitcher make it all that much better.
Very true. Excellent. How about Juan?
Well, the Masonic Roundtable, if you want to imagine being able to meet every week with 4 of your best friends and sit down and have a structured, intelligent, yet funny conversation, that's how this feels like.
We're best friends.
We BFFs.
And imagine there have been moments where I haven't felt like being part of the show for an episode, and I've gotten encouraged to, "No, come on, join me, join us, let's talk about it." And I shake off whatever grumpiness I have, or if there's anything going on, I shake it off and I join the show. Imagine if you had that. Actually, you do have it. Join us every Tuesday, and that's exactly how I feel. But it's been a great blessing, Good friends, great conversations, and it feels very nice.
Awesome. All right, Nick Johnson.
Smib.
Whoa.
Smib. So motivated.
That's to the MIB, yo.
That's to the MIB. Nick Johnson, your mic working now?
One of them is.
One of them.
Oh, not the one we want.
Yeah. How
This will
has it?
happen. Yeah, I know. Tell me about it. It's almost there. You know what? It's looking at me, and it's staring at me and saying, tomorrow. Anyway, you know what I've gotten from this is a new perspective on Masonry, because the thing is I'm kind of an old dog, and so I'm learning new tricks and I'm learning new things from everybody, and I've been set in my ways, but it's also encouraged me to actually get back into Masonic blogging, Masonic topics, Masonic issues, and I love it. You know what? And you know what, you guys, I love you guys. It's awesome. Everything that we do here is fantastic. So that's really all I got to say.
Awesome, I agree.
Yeah. Everybody love everybody.
Group hug,
Be
everybody.
excellent to each other.
Let's see. As for me, I think if I would be amiss if I did not say that I'm humbled to work with these four brilliant gentlemen. I brought these guys together on a whim and said, "Hey, I've been listening to you or reading your blogs for a while now, and I'm honored to work with the leaders in the online Freemasonry movement, at least in the more recent years." And so,
And the people who are just happy to be here.
and then there's Jason, right? Of course, Jason has a special area in my heart because we found out we actually went to the same church and didn't even know each other before then, and so it's great to just run into people that you never know how they're going to affect your lives, and not only have the four of you done that for me, so have all the feedback, as Jason said, with all the listeners, every single comment coming in. No question's a dumb question because we don't know. We'll look it up. But we love hearing from every single one of you, and hopefully we've helped in your Masonic journey. With that, let's move into the plethora of questions. I'm using Jason's word from the night. The plethora of questions we got, and in no particular order, we are going to go through and briefly address each question. That's the plan. Ask us anything. And we have a variety of questions. So what I will do is I will moderate. I'll read the question and who it's from, and then either allow everyone to chime in or direct questions as I see fit. So that's how the game will be played. The first question for tonight is from Richard Zarth, and the question is to each one of us: if there was one thing that you could change about Masonry with the wave of a wand or the wave of a wand, what would it be? What is one thing you would change about Masonry, just in fiat? And let's start with Robert Johnson.
Drinking. No, I'm totally kidding. So, kind of quick answer would just be that I wish that every time we opened a lodge, we actually were in a meeting for longer than it took to open. And that in one of those meetings, people would be free to discuss, just like we do here. Could you imagine going to a stated meeting where, yeah, we flew through the minutes and we took care of the business, and then for an hour afterwards, we did exactly what we do on the show? Open forum, talking about Masonry. What if we did that? That's what I'd change.
Awesome. Let's go to Nick Johnson. What would you change? One wave of the wand. Oh, and his mics. He's still trying to fool with that daggone mic.
Yeah.
All right, we'll come back to you, Nick. Don't worry. Okay, Juan, how about you?
That the answer from Robert is so close to what I envision.
I still hear some.
Yeah, you killed it, man. No, but I'm in complete agreement. That would be the one thing that I would change, that there was a stronger focus on Masonic education, and not just the historical aspect of what Masonry has been, or kind of like with what I do in the Winding Stairs. It's like, how does that apply to your life? Like, how, yeah, here's Masonry. Now here is how it kind of fits in your personal life in today's world. Go do something with it. I think that would be the one thing. And I'm sure there are lodges out there that are like that, and they're very focused on Masonic education. but I wish everybody had the opportunity to enjoy a lodge that has that as the #1 priority.
Agreed. Okay, Nick Johnson, are you back?
I'm back on my
Okay.
crap mic. I mean, my great mic.
What would be one thing you would change about Masonry with a wave of a wand?
My mic. No, just kidding. What would I change? What would I change? I was thinking about this question, and for me, what I would change is the ability to be more creative in lodge ritual. I think right now, because we've quote unquote standardized the ritual, we make it very very much an exercise in frustration, boredom, and annoyance.
Mhm.
I mean, frankly, we should be able to be a little more free. I mean, I'm not saying, free for all, do whatever you want, bring in crazy stuff. But, I mean, we as a fraternity survived for a couple hundred years letting the master just pick something cool that he thought was cool, said it was a symbol this year, and it was a symbol this year. So,
Cool.
yeah, a little more freedom.
Awesome. Jason.
All right. More meritocracy, a lot less good old boy system. So often people get awards and people get elected to places of responsibility not because they're the best candidate for the job or the most innovative candidate for the job, but they're simply the candidate that goes out to Masonic functions 7 nights a week, and it's ridiculous. So institute more meritocracy. If someone is there every night, but they are a grouchy old man with terrible ideas, they don't need to be in a position of leadership simply because they're there.
Agreed. And as for me, I will supplement that by saying no progressive lines. For those who aren't accustomed, they are the concept that just because you sat in a chair for a certain number of years or you move up to the next chair, it's an automatic thing. And I'm encouraging that lodges stop doing that and get to meritocracy. What have you done lately? And are you ready for the position? Not have you served your time, right?
So, John, that's
Mhm.
going to be an episode because I have questions about that
Okay.
all day long.
Adding it to the list.
Awesome.
Okay, next question comes from Edward Trayford, which is, what are the rules for the hat that the Worshipful Master wears? Is it his choice, or are there special rules? And I'm sure this will vary by jurisdiction, so I will allow Jason to cover the Virginia area, and then we'll go around to the other lodges, or the other jurisdictions. So, Jason.
So the current Worshipful Master of Acacia Lodge, Nick Nichols, has a snake skin and leather top hat embroidered with Masonic symbols that kind of looks like something Slash would wear. And it's kind of crazy. But really in Virginia, you can wear whatever you want as master. I think the unofficial rules, that's also something I get rid of Masonry. No unofficial rules and traditions. The unofficial rule for a master's hat in Virginia is no bills. It has to have a brim that goes all the way around. So if you're wearing a baseball cap and the yarmulke, you're out of luck.
All right. Juan, how about you? Do you know what goes on in Virginia? Or Florida? Let's try Florida.
In sunny Florida, the majority of the hats I have seen have been very traditional. Stetson, either a stingy brim or a fedora. I've seen a lot of versions, but my latest Worshipful Master, Worshipful Greg Waldron, he had a white 10-gallon cowboy hat. So, although I haven't looked at the digest yet, I didn't feel in much of a hurry to look at Worshipful Master hat rules. I'm a little bit far from there. I was surprised when I first saw it. I was like, wow, that's really cool. And it fits him. He looks great on it. He looks authoritative. And he looks like the Master of the Lodge. So
Okay.
it looks They look correct.
All right, Nick. How about Minnesota?
All right, is my mic working?
Yes, it is.
Am I working?
Yeah.
Sweet. Oh
one,
man,
two,
this is
1, 2.
You sound so much different now.
wow. Man, I sound almost Barry White-like. Anyway, in
That was
Minnesota, the in Minnesota, the hat that is worn is up to the master's choice. One time I saw a lodge where they were running into some issues where somebody had a miscommunication, forgot a hat, and they grabbed a baseball cap, Twins hat, and they just threw it on, and they were good to go, and nobody said anything because you know what? A cover is a cover is a cover.
Ooh. Robert, how about you? I'm going to speed things up here.
Illinois is literally any hat with a brim, preferably black. I believe. I don't think it has to be, but I've also seen colonial hats worn. So it's really the master's prerogative. We don't have to wear one if we don't want to, but you can. The hat traditionally we do top hats.
Okay. I'll also add that in Pennsylvania, according to Worshipful Paul Chamberlain, who's been on in the past, it must be a top hat and it must be coat and tails. So there's that. But also in Virginia, it is the master's prerogative to wear a hat at all. So if you forget a hat, no big deal. You can opt to not have a hat. Next question, Gerald Brown. Are there any alchemists in the group, either operative or speculative? And I'll let anyone who's a current alchemist stand up and announce their...
So you have the meme.
Well, I mean,
I dabble. I dabble meme ready. I can't say that I actively do anything. I research a lot of it, just as part of Masonic occult studies and things like that. But I don't actively practice anything.
Yeah. How about you guys?
I am an alchemist. I turn paint into gold.
You do.
You
just blew my mind.
Awesome. Oh man, that's nice.
No, but I'm with RJ. I'm fascinated by it, and I'm reading as much as I can. And so it's definitely on the speculative, the philosophical alchemy rather than the operative chemical transitions. But it's a pretty neat supplement to Christianity.
I like to look at the historical aspect of it and see how throughout history certain symbols have been used to denote certain ideas, and I've been getting into that a lot more when looking at the concept of light, and it's portrayed by things like sulfur and other various ancient symbols. So it's cool.
It's cool.
Meh.
It's fun to think about. Okay, next question comes from Will Fowler, and I'm going to group a couple of his together. Basically, how did the roundtable get together? Since this is our year show, we really haven't addressed that too much. Basically, the questions are, how did the five of us meet if we're all over the place? I alluded to that earlier, that
we haven't.
We actually have not all physically been in the same place at the same time. And so, online. Really, that's the thing, is I follow a lot of what these great guys do for Masonry, and due to tools like Google Hangouts, we can do this show. Who came up with the idea for the Masonic Roundtable?
John Rourke.
Yeah, okay, so I was the guy who just said, hey, I got a crazy idea, and the rest of these guys went on this crazy ride with me, so the name itself, I actually don't remember. We just organically came together, and I think it's special because so Juan's going to take credit for it, that we are a round table of knights. So there you go. Now you know. I learned something today.
See, we almost called ourselves the Masonic Planeteers, so we got lucky because when you combine our powers,
which one's mine?
We are Captain Mason.
No, what's the Captain America guy? I mean,
you are Heart. You're the guy who
has Heart.
One gets the useless power.
The rest of us are actually alchemists at that point.
No,
See
but
what we
back
did
to
there?
back to the question about the Masonic Roundtable. I definitely John came up with the idea of getting it done. I had thought about something similar, and I had thought about the name because I followed a podcasters roundtable, and the format and all of that. I know that John he used to watch an Android one.
Yeah, Droid Life. That's how I got the idea. They
Droid
use this thing,
Yeah.
and it's basically once a week chat about Android phones.
Yeah.
And I liked the give and take and the conversation, and wanted to do that for Masonry.
Yeah. So the structure and the mastermind behind the Masonic Roundtable, it's John came up with that, and we started chatting back and forth whether we would be a part of it or consider it, and it ended up happening. So I'm glad it did.
Cool.
You know, another interesting thing about what's happened over the past year is the five of us are actually in a persistent chat room together, just a closed chat client between the five of us. So we're literally talking every single day for a good portion of the day, just back and forth. It's kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. If it were a book, it would be. Yeah.
It wouldn't end. You remember, I switched phones recently, and I was able to see how many messages we had going back and forth, and we had about 6,000 messages going back and forth, and it's been months to go. So we'll
Wow.
probably double that.
Jeez. Okay, next question from Chris Van Dwayne. Question 1: should a lodge care more about community service or fellowship within the lodge? So basically, should the lodge focus outside or focus inside, or both? Anyone?
Can I go?
Yes.
Do it.
Inward. The focus, in my opinion, the focus of Masonry is for the Mason, and the way even if you think about it in your personal life, you can push until you're blue in the face, and there's nothing you'll do to change the people around you until you change your own self. So you have to focus in Masonry. I think should focus on its members to help them become the best version of themselves possible. Then they'll have a chance at doing anything significant outside.
Well, and
Community service is a natural extension of the brotherhood and the fellowship and building each other up, but it's not the antecedent.
Well, and for me, it's one of those that when you have, and I'm sure we can talk about this on some other show, but for me, I think the problem is that when you pick a charity or a community project or something like that, and then you do it the next year, and the next year, and the next year, now all of a sudden you're leaving these other projects that could have been done, and now you've become entrenched, then you can't change it, and we all know what happens to Masons when they get into that groove. It's always been done that way. And then you're trapped having to, flip another pancake.
The way I feel about it is essentially that it should be more about the Mason. Before, I think a lot of the community involvement really happened just because we're good people and we care about the community that we live in. That's where our families are. It's where kids go to school. So we kind of, as Jason said, a natural extension. But in the time of community's awareness of us only happened really because of the our huge buildings and things like that. I mean, if we're tavern masonry, early or late 1800s, that kind of thing going on, really there's not a whole lot of community going on. It's Masons meeting for degree work and making themselves better. I think that's kind of the focus where I would focus personally.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so this question is for each and every one of you, and I'll be brief. For this question comes from Aaron Sherman. How do you answer the first question that most non-Masons ask? What is it that you guys do?
I refer to the rules of Fight Club.
First rule of Masonry is you don't talk about Masonry.
Yeah.
Not even at lodge.
How true that
You
is.
don't want to interrupt the good stuff, Pancake breakfast.
Nick, what do you say?
It's kind of interesting. I've always had this problem with this question because, you never know what to say, ever. And so I used to have an elevator speech, but then I just said, you know what? Essentially, we're just a fraternity for older guys. We take care of each other, and we take care of each other's families, and that's our main purpose. And
Cool.
that's pretty much the only elevator speech I have now.
How about you, Juan?
I allude to the same thing you hear me talk about on and off, that it is a place where we go and take teachings that precede us for generations and generations before us, and we take those lessons and convey them in a memorable way so that we can then efficiently apply them to their life. So, that obviously every time opens other questions. What does that mean? So
Right.
you have to kind of delve into virtues, morality, commitment, discretion.
So what I do, and I know this is boiling it down way too much, I say if you look at Masonry, take a fraternity with great history, the oldest fraternity in the world, and then combine it with people who just completely geek out on philosophy. And that's what you have. You have a fraternal organization for people who love thinking about thinking. And that's what you've got in Masonry.
Awesome. Robert?
I like that.
Like I said, man, I really wasn't far off when I said I invoked kind of the rules of Fight Club. I mean, when people ask me about it, I used to just go off and I would tell them everything I could to try to get them to the door. I have found that does nothing at all. When they come to me and ask me, I tell them to ask me in a week. And when they ask me in a week, I tell them to send me an email. And finally, I take them out to lunch, and we just talk a little bit about exactly what, probably an amalgamation, a little bit of what Jason said and what Nick said.
Very cool. As for me, I will usually say we are a global fraternity to make sure that it's not just a localized thing, ensure that this is a global thing that you can travel around the world for the purpose of making men better men through the art of self-improvement. And then if I get the next question is, okay, so what does that mean? Then I'll use the token line of, we're a system of morality, veiled in allegory and illustrated by symbols, but I won't stop there. I'll explain what each of those words mean and how that applies to our ritual and how our self-improvement. Okay, next question is, this comes from Harry Berry. Do you have any regrets, or would you have changed anything in your roundtables in the past year, knowing what you know now? Anything you said in the past year that you wish you could have changed on?
I'm pretty self-aware.
No.
I try to make sure I don't say anything awful, and I don't try to air myself up, right? So if I don't know about a topic, I'm not going to sit there and talk about it.
You're wrong. Anybody else? Anything they wish they could have taken back? Nick?
I know everyone's sitting there waiting for me to say youth group. And you know what I have to say to you? You know what? You are absolutely right. I wish I could have said more. A lot more.
Oh, that's funny.
I think one thing that I think I could have done a little bit better over the past year was have a little bit thicker skin when it comes to criticism of the show, especially with some of the episodes where people have, taken things to heart and have gotten offended over things that we have said that were not malicious, but they disagreed with anyway. I think that'll come with time, but I really want to please everybody. I'm trying very hard to take critical feedback to heart, but not dwell on it. And that's not something that you actually see in the actual show, but that's something that I'm working on. Otherwise, this show is awesome. You should totally listen to it every single week.
You should.
Actually, I think you've seen lots of changes occur over the past year. We've upgraded our equipment. We've added new segments like the MMQOT. We've certainly mixed it up a bit. So we've definitely changed things as we go, and I think it's made it a little bit better, in my opinion. Okay, the next question comes from Matt Botts, and if you don't remember, He was just on the show last week. Yeah, last week. And he asks, if you could change one thing in your respective lodges, what would that be? Very similar to Masonry in general, but now let's talk about your local lodge. If you could change one thing in your respective lodge, what would it be? Jason?
This is a hard one because, thinking about my mother lodge, Acacia, I absolutely love that place, and I love everybody in that place. The atmosphere, the genteel southern hospitality you get is just so amazing, and it fits me like a glove. I think...
That wasn't the question.
Yeah, I know. If there's one thing I could change, if I go to Patriot, it's easier for me to talk about Patriot. I think if there's one thing that I could change, and this will change with time, is I would get more indigenously raised Patriot members to do the heavy lifting in the lodge, because it's a new lodge, and most all of the members outside of 10 are affiliates who were raised in another lodge, and literally they serve two masters. And because you have the vast majority of the lodge membership splitting their time between two different lodges, it's very difficult to get things done.
Okay, Juan, how about you?
Mine's easy. I don't know my lodge enough for me to give you an answer about what I would change. I was just accepted a month ago into the lodge, and I have been to 2 or 3 meetings at the most.
So you wish they'd accepted you earlier, is what I'm hearing.
I really. Oh yeah, that's what I would change.
Nick.
Let's see. For me, I come from a lodge that's about 150 years old, so there's a lot of little itty bitty nitty gritty kind of stuff. Biggest thing is we need a little bit more guys showing up. That includes myself, and so it's just trying to figure out. I mean, we actually have a high amount of turnout compared to a lot of lodges, but I always wanted to see at least 50 or 60 guys in the seats, and we're still waiting on that. So.
Yep. Robert?
I think I would just like to have the ability to push along change a little bit easier. If I want to say, hey, we're going all white gloves, every stated, every degree, let's do it. I don't know what's so hard about that.
Yep.
I guess there's something difficult about it sometimes.
Change is hard, I guess. And I'll echo what Nick said. Let's just fill those seats. I would love to get back to the old days of Masonry where it's standing room only. And hopefully we'll get there. That time has passed. What did you say, Robert?
I said I don't think there was ever a time that was like that. I mean, in a pub maybe, but not.
And I got pictures. I tell you what, I've seen some pictures like from Naval Lodge, John Sousa, his lodge, man, that they filled up those seats. So
I stand correct.
Yes, you do. All right. This is from Mark Boysworth, who asks, Jason, how do you decide which of your many bow ties to wear on the show?
Are we really that far down on the list of questions already? So I'll humor him because he's a buddy of mine. It used to be, when we started out the show, I would make sure that I wore a different tie on each subsequent shows. And it's just now gotten to the point where I've lost track. So I think I've worn 1 or 2 bow ties twice. But for the vast majority, except for the one episode where I wore a necktie and nobody called me out on it, booyah, I usually try to just wear a different bow tie each show because of a lot of them.
All right. Next question comes from James W. Chambers. Why was the Noahic legend changed to the Hiramic legend? Or why do you think this is the reason? And all I can say to that is someone's been listening to the Esoteric Freemason Minute that just came out this week. So, and that's a deep question.
It is. Yeah.
That sounds like an episode.
It does sound like something Nick would be well adapted to creating a show for, or at least a blog post, right?
Yeah. Noahide Masonry is an exceptionally interesting topic in Masonry.
I was just going to say that the Northern Masonic jurisdiction just changed it.
Oh, yeah?
Not really. I was just
That's funny because I think we have a question later on about what's the submarine degree I keep hearing about. Noah was on a submarine? What? Okay, the next question comes from Pat Glover. Why do older brethren, generally, seem less interested in esoterics than authors like Manly P. Hall and others? This is a blanket statement, doesn't apply to every lodge, but why in general do older brethren seem less interested in the esoterics?
I can take part of this real quick. Or Nick can. Okay.
No, you
Nick,
go ahead. Go ahead.
You can come after me. So,
yeah.
I think it's a cultural difference. You look back at the interwar years and the years leading up to Vietnam, and you had a group of men who were very, very interested in maintaining the fraternal bonds that they first experienced when they were on the battlefield and with their military brethren. And when you have such an influx of Masons that are in it sheerly for the social, fraternal, brotherly aspect of it, I think the interest in esoterics just isn't there. And I think as you have newer Masons from the younger generations coming in, we're wired differently. We're very interested in questioning the norm, going, well, you say it's this way, but why? And why might it not be? And I think that with the newer generations coming into the fraternity, there's a resurgence of interest in Enlightenment philosophy and esoterics and ancient mysteries. And I think that's why, generally speaking, you have an older generation that is focused more on brotherhood and a younger generation that's focused much more on esoterics.
Plus, we've also got this idea of legacy building. They're at the point of their Masonic career in which they're trying to leave behind something. And for them, they've seen a lot of the administrative problems that we've had in Masonry. And so I think totally Jason is totally right. You are totally right on because, one, it was this generational shift of, and we've had the past master discuss this on many different Reddit posts, of the change that, and I think actually he was mentioning John's post about it where, the shift of what people were wanting to listen to in the short talks, and it switched from a esoteric focus to a history focus. And I think right now you've got two things kind of colliding at the same time. These guys are wanting to build a legacy, wanting to leave Masonry with some kind of impression of the work that they've done, plus the fact that they weren't really that interested, and this isn't for all of them. In fact, I know a number of older brothers who are very much into the esoterics. A really good friend of mine, Clay, is like crazy amazing with this stuff. But for the most part, you've got these two combining things, and they're going to come together of just legacy building, just trying to maintain the thing, and then also just kind of they never really had a desire in it to begin with. So that's kind of the collision course, and we're kind of having to deal with that, and that's where we get the generational issues.
Okay. All right. That's a good answer. This one comes on Twitter, @MasonsUnite. And the question is, what would it take to get the Grand Lodges in each jurisdiction to trickle down funds for PR or provide support for great content like TMR and other educational programs? What would it take to get that money from Grand Lodge to trickle down?
The question is, do we want that money?
Ooh.
I will throw that out there, right, plain and simple.
Right.
TMR is not funded by any Grand Lodge, which means that we're able to express our opinions respectfully and freely on the show without worrying about the money completely stopping just because we take a contrary position to a given grand jurisdiction.
And I will throw this out there. I mean, everybody who's a Master Mason most likely gets a Grand Lodge magazine quarterly or monthly or something like that. And you don't hear, not that we like throwing up dirt or anything like that. You're not going to hear the whole story from a publication coming from the Grand Lodge, right? Because let's be honest, you are not going to publicize things that might be questionable. you're not going to publicize anything that's like anything that can be construed negatively. And on a program like this or another Masonic podcast, anything that's getting like kind of funding from any sovereign Masonic body or otherwise has to take that into consideration. You do not want to incur any kind of issues. And I totally agree with Jason.
Now, I will say, then why have a Grand Lodge Committee of Education like we do in Virginia? And I think it's a good thing to have an established educational thing. If you have nowhere to start, there should be a channel from the top down for your local lodge through your district deputy Grand Master and his team to have an educational program of some sort, right? But don't stop there, which is why this show was created, which is why there's podcasts and blogs were created to spark further discussion beyond just the official channels of education. So I think we shouldn't not have education funded by the Grand Lodge, but I think that we should also have the freedom to start off little spin-offs like we've been doing for the past couple of years.
And there's a different type of support as well. In order for a show or for an individual's initiative to put forth Masonic education, it doesn't have to be monetary support. And I'll give you the example of my Grand Lodge. I have had the privilege of speaking before the Grand Lodge officers at one occasion and some of the members of them at another. And I've received very good support from my Grand Lodge. It's not an official endorsement from their part, but efforts that I have made have been recognized by them and shared through magazines like the one that we have in Florida and the social media, the official social media channel of the Grand Lodge. They have shared some of the things that I've done. I really appreciate that support, and it's. Would I expect them to send me money for what I'm doing? I don't think that would happen, but I don't think it's necessary. If you have people in your jurisdiction that are doing something good for the fraternity, it's one of the best support that you can give them is to give them a nod or a pat in the back and say, you're pretty good, keep it up.
And actually, if I can just say one more little quick thing, I did say, we don't necessarily want Grand Lodge money. However, TMR does get a lot of really good support from several Grand Line officers in the Grand Lodge of Washington, D.C., especially the Deputy Grand Master, Ken Fuller, and some of his officers. So support is fantastic, and it doesn't have to be monetary. And I think where we go wrong is where there's support given with an expectation of return.
Very true. Next question comes from Rob Shields, who asks, who are your listeners? What are their demographics? What are the locations? And are there any big surprises from the metrics and measures that you guys are collecting? Now, I think one thing that I'll add to that is that shortly after we started doing the YouTube version of the show, that we had our biggest request, our number one request from everybody was, I want a podcast version, right? I want a podcast. And we've certainly seen a large growth. And so when we track those things, we have to track both the YouTube views as well as the podcast views. Those have gone up at least 20% every month, and so we've certainly grown a lot over the years. As far as demographics, I think one thing is that surprisingly, this is mostly male-oriented. That we have mostly male listeners, right? RJ is bringing up the geographic locations of where we are downloaded from the podcast version the most. And
so we know where you live.
We do know where you live. As you can see, primarily United States, a little bit of Canada, but outside of the Northern America district, you do see a lot in India and a lot in Australia as well. And I find that kind of fascinating.
South Africa, India, Australia, Canada, and even the UK are some of the biggest listeners.
Yeah, you guys rock. I mean, that's amazing because, again, for 5 guys that are doing this in their basement, you guys are really supporting the show by sharing that with your lodge brethren. And we've been receiving feedback from many of you, personal messages back to the page or to us individually, and keep that up because we are just amazed about not only that we've reached that far, but what we've gained from learning about what goes on in your jurisdiction. Okay, next
and the
question.
popularity of certain shows too. That's another thing that has been surprising.
That's true. We've had a couple of spikes in our viewership, very popular shows, and the short version is the more controversial the topic, the more viewers we get, right? Clandestine Masonry, Illuminati, the discussions with the 33rd, those are our most popular shows. I think because as Sheeple, Wake Up Sheeple 35 goes and trolls the internet, he finds these shows to latch onto and tells all his tinfoil hat wearing friends. All right, and our next question comes from Brett Quiggle. What do you all think of Dan Brown? Does he help or hurt the craft? Anybody?
Well,
I love Dan Brown.
yeah. Why wouldn't you? First, for the statistic, and I'll butcher the numbers, right? Something like, we'll just use arbitrary numbers, 100 guys petitioned the Grand Lodge of Colorado one year, and then the next year after Dan Brown's book comes out, it was like 1,000. That's good. I'm sorry.
Yep.
And I'm not sorry. And that's a good thing.
Well, you know, it's interesting because Dan Brown actually has a deep respect for the craft to the point where he's gone out publicly and say, you know what, I've been told that the lodge door is open to me for membership, and he said the only reason that he wouldn't do that is because then he would be bound by obligations not to give away secrets of the fraternity, and that would hamper his fiction writing. So I think he has a deep, profound respect for what we do as Masons. I'm cool with that.
Yep. I'm a believer in there's no such publicity as bad publicity. That once you're out there, you get people thinking, and they have to experience it for themselves. As any Mason knows, you really can't describe the fraternal bond. You really can't describe what you get out of Masonry until you apply it. And so, if it brings people to the door, and it keeps them there, then by all means, that's great. This next question comes from Kevin.
The oh, sorry.
Does it include the what?
Does it also include stories about jesters? And we're moving on.
And next question. This next question comes from Kevin Smith. For the past masters, Nick, that would be you and me. I guess. What was one thing you didn't do in your year that you wish you had? Nick?
Do you want me to go first?
Please.
All right. Let's see. You know, the one thing that we didn't do very well that we could have done is a lot more travel. We traveled once a month, which was fine, but you know, really to really understand not just your district, but like, and I should explain, Minnesota's weird in that we have one gigantic metro area, and then just a lot of regional centers. So we should have traveled to a lot more lodges, and we just didn't have time. But you know, I really wish we would have gotten out there because it really gives you a big perspective. I'm a traveler, and I love visiting lodges, but you know, it's just one of those that you have to get that pattern and that practice within your brothers to actually figure.
Mm-hmm. I think for me, we had a great time during my year, of course, because it was my year. And I think the one thing that I wish I had done better was I did not get out a regular trestle board on time. Now, for those who don't know, a trestle board is really your monthly newsletter that states what you're planning on doing for the next month coming up. My communication was done through more direct, hey, we're having a meeting at this time, we're scheduling the degree work, the ritual work. So it was not through a lack of communication, it was just the formal announcement that most lodges do in the district of a trestle board, a physical, or a PDF of the next month's events. I didn't have a chance to do. No regrets there because the message still got out, communication still got out. But I wish I still had something tangible that I could show for it. Okay, next question comes from Spartacus Commands. That's an awesome name there. What constitutes a great lodge and also a great lodge meeting? And what constitutes a bad lodge and a bad lodge meeting? So think back to a time where you had you either attended an awesome lodge or just had a fantastic meeting.
Okay.
And
John, can I take on the bad first?
Go ahead.
All right. So I went out a lodge meeting. I'm not going to say where, when, or anything else, but we opened up. In form 1, 2, 3. Closed on the 3rd. Conducted business on the 2nd. Closed the 2nd. Closed the 1st. It took 50 minutes to open and close, and the meeting in between took 15 minutes.
Wow.
It was not awful because I was sharing time with brothers, but let me tell you that to take off of work to go to something like that was a bit frustrating.
So who else had a great lodge experience?
Ooh, I could answer that. All right, so Mr. Sunshine here.
Every meeting when I was master.
Back in my year, we had an awesome time.
When I was lodge education officer, the tears would flow, tears of joy and happiness. But no, seriously, what we changed in our meetings was we switched it so education was first before any of the business. Education was first. You did the pledge, read the minutes, education. And I decided I was going to try something different. I was going to try something that was very law school-esque, Socratic, and interesting. And so I took the Socratic Cafe, Socrates Cafe idea, and I said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to present a topic, just something simple. And so I said Masonic morality. And guess what? That topic is not simple, but it was a fantastic discussion. We were discussing sources of, does Masonry have morality? What do you focus on? What sources do they come from within Masonry? And every single brother spoke, even the quiet ones. They had something to say. It was a 2-hour meeting. We didn't even remember what the business that we had to cover was. We closed, and we kept talking outside the meeting. It was fantastic.
Sounds awesome.
Oh, it was perfect.
I think you said something there that summarizes what a great lodge is, and it's one that you still talk about it after the meeting. Mm-hmm. Whether it is that the brethren really had passion on the ritual, you could see their dedication to the preciseness of the floor work and the words, or if it's the focus is education. As long as afterwards you have that impression in your mind and you left that place feeling better or knowing more than you did when you came in, I think that's a great lodge. Now, a bad lodge. A bad lodge is one where there is, I'm trying to find the word to, what's the word when you don't care? When you are...
Apathy.
Apathy. It is so disgusting to be inside of a lodge and feel apathy from the brothers. If you have but a hint that apathy is wrapping its insidious claws around the brethren of your lodge, do something about it. Don't sit there and let it happen. It's like the mentors, or they'll come in and will suck the life out of your lodge. Fight it with tooth and nail.
Awesome. Okay, I think.
And I mean it.
Tooth and nail, according to Juan. Tooth and nail. I think we have
Only
time
one.
for about one more question, and then we'll start wrapping up.
Make it a good one.
This is a good one because it comes from my mentee, Al Leathers, who's a fellow craft, soon to be raised a Master Mason. And he asks a very good question, I think. Currently, who is the most transformative leader or movement in Freemasonry, and why? So a person or movement in Freemasonry. and why do you think they are so transformative?
Wow, that's a really good question because I mean we all have names that are in our heads of people that we follow. You know, I mean there's 100 guys you could name at any given time.
But that affect the whole fraternity. That's
The whole fraternity, yeah. I guess that
see.
would all depend on the fraternity's level of involvement in their ability to look outside of their own lodge for education too. And for a lot of guys, that's going to be their mentor, you know, or in their district, their education guy. For guys like our viewers of the show, where we're all engaged online and we're looking and we're reading, you know, some names pop into my head. I mean, I certainly love reading Arturo de Hoyos' posts. Certainly love reading when Eric Diamond's got stuff to say. Todd E. Crease, and these are guys that I grew, you know, through my Masonic career, I guess you would call it, reading about, you know, and their points of view.
Well, and you know, I think the movement that is most transformative right now is actually the southern jurisdiction of the Scottish Rite, and it seems almost as if they get it. You know, you see all these other bodies just kind of, you know, treading water, not really sure, well, what do we do now? How do we get these young guys? And they're sitting there going, we have social media presence, we have a PR committee, we have interesting materials that people actually want to listen to and read. We have educational, you know, opportunities through the Master Craftsman program. We have tons of degrees that people can talk about. I mean, they have the whole package, and I just, you know, I think they're pretty much the only movement or organization or whatever that seems to be figuring out that we need to move on to this century and not think about the great stuff that we did last century.
Certainly,
last century is last century.
Yeah, they actively engage all of their members on a variety of levels.
Yep. You know, I'll add to it, and I will say that the traditional observance movement. The question is, who is the most transformative leader or movement in Freemasonry? You don't have to agree with them, but they are the most transformative in the sense of trying to, you know, get back to our roots, observe the craft, as it were, and really understand and respect the solemnity of the ritual. And so, from a movement perspective, I'll kind of leave it on this data point that the traditional observant movement is very active out in Colorado. And if you look at how the membership has increased or decreased across every state, which you can find freely available on the MSA stats, the one state with the largest more than single-digit growth has been Colorado, where also, again, a large portion of the traditional observance movement has focused. So if you did a little bit more research and figured out what was the cause and effect of why is there such a big growth in the fraternity and why in that one state, I think it would be worth researching to see if there is more than a correlation and actually a causality between the TO movement and the growth in membership.
Quick point on that is I think TO makes Masonry a really big deal to a person's life.
Mm-hmm.
Like a lot of guys, you know, it's a big deal, but they really make it a big deal, which is respectful.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we've had an awesome time tonight. Let's start wrapping up very quickly. I'll let each host kind of give their last synopsis of the past year, any questions that they didn't get a chance to feel they answered correctly, and any other shameless plugs. So Jason Richards, send us home.
All right, just looking through the questions real quick. I didn't weigh on the transformative Masonic movement just because Masonry is so unified yet so disparate that it's transformation is going to be very, very different and very innately personal to anybody who's a Mason. So I think just those couple Masons who have shown me a really great time and have been really gracious hosts to me when I've been traveling across the country this past year. Those are transformative Masons who are going out of their way to help their brethren out and create good things and good opportunities for the brethren in their lodges. Brethren like the St. John's Lodge in Newcastle, Delaware, with Joe Schultz and company. Those are brethren who are trying to make a difference and trying to make Masonry a better organization. And I'm not saying Masonry is a bad organization, but we always want to make it better. And I've been able to run across a number of brethren throughout my travels the past year especially who are digging in their heels and doing just that. And I think those ground roots transformative efforts are going to add up in the aggregate to something amazing. With that, I just want to say thanks to everybody who's watching, everybody who's listening, everybody who tunes in and asks us questions. Like I said at the beginning, my best part of this year has been you and the relationships that I've been able to cultivate with you all. So, no shameless plugs for me tonight. I really just want to say thank you to all of you, and I'm really looking forward to being here with you all, interacting with you all for years to come.
Awesome. Thank you. Juan.
Well, it certainly has been a great year, and we've gone back and forth with certain questions pertaining to our views in about Masonry, about lodges, about one another. But there's one thing that I want you all to think when you listen to this. Think about what us five have been able to do in a year by getting together consistently and discussing things that we find are important. You can do exactly the same thing and join 5 of your brothers after lodge, sit down and have a good conversation. Furthermore, I encourage you, if you can, try to, unless you have lodge night on Tuesday, find 4 other brothers and sit down and join us around the round table. You can find 4 brothers just like we used to do back in the day and listen to the radio all around the radio. Get a few brothers, get together, watch the show live, and once we sign off, you keep the conversation going and get together and try to take the conversation that we spark and take it a step further. So I challenge you, if next week you can start doing that, get 3-4 brothers together at your home or at your lodge somewhere and watch the Masonic Roundtable. And once we're done speaking, you continue the conversation. I think that would be a good experiment to do. And I have no shameless plug this week. TheWindingStairs.com is your source for Freemasonry podcast. So join me there. I want you to listen to the latest episode that I have out there about rituals, and I want to hear your opinion about it. So TheWindingStairs.com. That's
excellent.
It. Thank you.
Great podcast, Juan. Nick Johnson.
Gracias.
Nick, are you with us? You've muted and everything.
He is not here. Hello, everyone.
Oh my
Dear
No!
So, I heard that people were asking questions about me, and I am still here, and I'm still looking for the truth in all things. So I am your friend on the internet, Wake Up Sheeple35. Nick is sleeping down here for a while. And I would like to make an announcement today that if you keep an eye on my YouTube channel, Wake Up Sheeple35, videos will happen. You can also visit my blog at they'reallwatchingyou.blogspot.com. And I want to thank the Roundtable for allowing me to bring my message to the world. Thank you.
We've really got to find a better Tyler.
You know, chloroform is dangerous, right? We kind of need Nick
So
around.
is MSG.
Does this smell like chloroform to you? All right. Robert Johnson. Thank you, Sheeple.
So I go out, and sometimes when I go to a lodges or whatever, as an education officer, I get to tell this story, and it's very brief. And so when I was a kid, I used to go up to my dad. I remember several occasions I go up to my dad. He'd be, sitting on the couch drinking a beer with his buddies, and I'd walk up to him, and I remember asking the same question all the time. I grew up in Southern California, so we always had strawberries in the house, and I would ask him, Dad, why do strawberries have the seeds on the outside? And he'd take a drink of his beer, he'd stop talking to his buddy, he'd look at me, and he'd say, "That's a really good question, son." And then he'd take another drink, and he'd start talking to his friend. And he never answered me, and that always bothered me. And it was the same way about Masonry. I would ask questions, and people would say, "That's a great question," and they'd never answer me. And what this show has done, podcasting and listening to multiple brothers and reading all of the blogs that are out there, it's really given me a lot of the answers that I'm looking for. And I can't thank those guys enough. I can't thank the hosts of this show enough, and especially the viewers and the listeners as well. You guys are the reason we're doing this, and essentially giving us the answers to our own questions by asking those questions, and we're researching these things and talking about them, and through a natural discourse, it all kind of comes together, and we're getting something out of this that is Masonry, and that's it. So just thanks, and I hope you guys all come back for a whole nother year.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. I'm going to just echo what the rest of the hosts have said. This has been a fantastic journey. We're going to do this as long as you guys are watching, and we're still interested, and that will be the far future as far as I'm concerned. We thank you very much for watching, for contributing, for asking good questions, for engaging with us, because we're all in this fraternity together. Every jurisdiction does differently, and once you get beyond the scope of what happens in your local lodge, you'll see that there's such a variety, a spice of life that is Freemasonry, that the possibilities are endless. And I really do appreciate everything that you guys do for the fraternity, at your local level, at your district level, at your state level, at your country level. And for that, I thank you very much for watching, and keep searching for more light. Have a good night.